The werewolf that chased me down Highway 62. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I got a dogman story for you, or really a werewolf story. I accidentally got a weirdo werewolf mad at me while he was in the middle of his transformation, and it almost ended badly for both of us, as he chased me down Highway 62 in the middle of the night. This was many years ago. I'd say either 1982 or 83, when I had only been driving for a year or two. I was still pretty young, but delivering packages was a way to make some money, so I drove. I was heading home after a long day, and I was driving my giant 1979 Lincoln Continental through Pennsylvania on US 62. This road is just one lane going one way and one lane going the other, with dense forest on either side. It's beautiful in the summer during the day, and can get kind of oppressive and creepy at night, and I mean all year round too. This road, as it stretches through the countryside in PA, is like heaven in the day and hell at night. I'm not even kidding you. It's like a haunted road, but only when it gets dark or overcast. At least that's been my experience. And most of the way I feel about that road is because of this one experience on that one late summer night. I had been hoping to make it home before peeing, but nature called. So I pulled off the side of this dark, deserted, lonely highway in the middle of the night and walked over to a bush to water it, as nature intended. Everything was quiet and peaceful. In fact, it was really, really quiet. Like there were no crickets or anything out there. All I could hear was the wind. And then it was like some kind of naked hippie caveman, and he was screaming at me. I ran back to my Lincoln, jumped inside, and gunned her out of there. My heart was beating so fast, but I was calming down because at least I was safe. I had gotten away. Except I hadn't, because there he was, the naked hippie caveman. He was running outside on the road, keeping pace with my car. I must have been up to 25 or 30 miles an hour at that point, and this nut job was pacing me outside. I got really scared, because I figured he must be on one of those drug trips I had read about, where they just don't feel pain any longer. He didn't have shoes on, yet he was running barefoot on pavement. He must be insane, I remember thinking. I started speeding up, and so did he. However fast I drove, that was the speed he ran. I wasn't able to lose him by speeding up, nor could I lose him by slowing down. So I stopped slowing down, and I just tried to get the heck out of there. This guy was all muscle, and I was convinced he was going to do something terrible if he succeeded in getting his hands on me. But then I got a better look at the face of this guy, and I could swear it looked different than it had looked last time. This guy looked like he had saber teeth, like an ancient extinct animal from caveman times. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that, but they were oversized fangs like in those skeletons in the museums. No human being ever had teeth like that. He sure didn't seem to be wearing a mask either. He never stopped to adjust his face. His face just changed and morphed on its own, while he ran alongside my car, screaming into the night. Now that I gave this hippie a second glance, I could see how incredibly hairy he was. But not just on his head. He was hairy on every part of himself. When you really looked at him, he was disgusting. He barely even looked human at all, really. And his face, it looked different again from how it had looked earlier. How could a man run as fast as this one was doing? And what was happening to his head? It looked to me as though his skull itself were elongating, stretching out and forward. The more it stretched, the more it looked like some kind of a dog or canine. And then that was when it first hit me. That thing that I'm sure all of you would have thought about from the word go. That was when it first hit me that I was watching a man transform into a werewolf. Because if this guy wasn't turning into a werewolf, then he was turning into something an awful lot like a werewolf. His hands were clawed like a monster. Had they been when I first ran from him? Or was that a more recent development? Had his face changed shape again? Or was I imagining things? It was an extremely hallucinogenic minute or two of my life. It really was not that long an episode, considering how often I think about it and talk about it. I mean, either last year or this year is the 40th anniversary of the experience. And to me, it's still something that feels recent. I still have to brace myself if I need to drive in the country at night. In fact, I avoid it if I can. But obviously you can't always. I kept gradually increasing my speed, and I expected the lunatic to fade back behind me. Instead, somehow, he seemed to be able to pace me, no matter what speed I drove. It was pretty crazy, as he never seemed to even glance in my direction. I don't know if he was intentionally racing me, or if he was just freaking out and running because of his transformation. I wasn't sure if his behavior had anything to do with me at all, or if this was all entirely about me. Maybe this was the creature's way of hunting, whatever kind of creature this was. Maybe it walked around looking like a hippie part of the time, but no hippie could run as fast as this thing ran. And the longer it raced next to my car, the less it looked like a human being at all. That Wolfman was screaming as he ran, but I couldn't tell if it was because it was angry or in pain. Like, was it a cry of warning or a cry of agony and torment? Throughout this surreal experience, I had my foot on that gas pedal, trying to outpace the creature. Suddenly I didn't need to any longer, as the creature man sort of doubled over on himself and into himself. I thought he was having an attack of some sort, a medical incident, as they say. But when I looked into my rearview mirror, I saw something that few men get to lay eyes on. I saw a fully transformed werewolf. That man who had been chasing me was now a four-legged creature, no longer a man in any conceivable way. Looking around and finding he had a choice to chase my car, or chase something tastier in the woods, the big werebeast chose to dart between some trees deep into the forest, where he could hunt until dawn. As terrified as I had been while the chase was ongoing, I felt a bit sad that the werewolf had run off. I know how ridiculous that sounds, too. I've seen the look in people's eyes when I say that to them. I wanted to get away from this monster, but then as soon as I achieved that, I wished I could double back and get to see the thing again. Of course I didn't. The young me was a bit crazy and impetuous, but not dumb enough to get back out of the car on a night when I knew for a fact that there were werewolves prowling about. I drove to an all-night diner and I told my story to the waitress and the cook, and one person who came in for food while I was telling my story. The waitress listened to what I had to say. Then she told me that she had seen a Bigfoot standing along that same highway, and she had seen it turn into a light bulb and float off into the woods. I thought she was making fun of me, but it turned out that she meant it turned into an orb, a floating ball of light, not a physical light bulb. She seemed to be telling the truth, even though the story sounded so weird. Not much weirder than a man running 60 miles an hour as he changes into a wolf, though. I suppose I don't really have a right to be calling other people's stories strange now, do I? Probably the main thing I was left with after that night was the realization that a lot of people have seen a lot of weird things. I never would have known that waitress saw a Bigfoot that turned into an orb if I hadn't told her my werewolf transformation story, right? And I bet the other two people in the diner had their own stories, but they just probably were too shy to share them. I bet almost everyone has seen something strange at one time or another. And I have a weird feeling deep down inside that somehow they're all related, too. The things people can't explain, I mean. Maybe there's sort of a common reason why these things can't be explained. Or a common cause, at least. Something that ties these bizarre events and creatures together. I don't know, maybe it's a dumb idea. Why would a werewolf have anything to do with a Bigfoot? But I witnessed a werewolf transformation. And I can't explain to you what I witnessed. I saw a man turn into a beast, but what exactly was the process I observed, which resulted in that? I don't even know. I can't even tell you. So basically the shorter version of my story is this. Something happened. I don't know what it was. I can't explain it. And it still scares the bejeebus out of me to this very day. All these years later, I would have thought I would understand what happened to me by now. I would have thought someone would have either come forward and admitted publicly to being a werewolf, or possibly that someone could have captured one and proven their reality. But still today, werewolves exist on the edge of our world, at the edge of reality and sanity. Where do they escape to when we look for them? Maybe they're only visitors in our world, just as real as you and me while they're here, but able to not be here, just like that. Maybe what I just said makes sense, or maybe I've just been spooked for life by the werewolf that chased me down Highway 62. Hey, if you've enjoyed our recent episodes about the 1936 and the 2008 Dogman Upright Walking Canine cases, both of those stories were taken from the great book Real Wolfmen by the great Linda Godfrey, and you can snag an audiobook version of that for only $6 if you follow the link in our description. There are a lot more true dogman and real werewolf stories in that book, written by Linda Godfrey, the original journalist who first exposed the Beast of Bray Road to the world way back in the 1990s. And if you get any version of the book at that link, we get a little bit of remuneration, which helps the channel survive. It's a good deal for you, and it helps us stay around for one day longer. Please welcome Mary Anderson. She just joined our plan, Durson. Please join me in thanking this episode's executive producer, Mary Anderson, for making this episode possible. Mary is the newest member of our channel memberships, which means she gets to see our secret uncensored stories, of which we have a new one coming out tomorrow called I Once Married into Werewolf Royalty. Mary also gets to see our over 25 hours of secret uncensored archive stories. And here to explain how you can get all that too is our international TV spokesmongrel, Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos, or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after, I think, 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.